Welcome back, everyone, to another explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something absolutely incredible. Surah 73 Al-Muzzammil. Now, while this is widely known as a foundational, historical, and religious text, we're actually going to examine it through a pretty fascinating lens today. We're going to see it not just as a spiritual mandate, but as a literal masterclass in human psychology and systemic stability. We're going to unpack how it acts as a very real operational blueprint for anyone trying to navigate our chaotic external realities by building an unbreakable internal foundation.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We begin with this incredibly striking opening verse from the surah. The text directly addresses a single individual who is wrapped, or enveloped in a cloak. It completely strips away all external titles and societal roles and issues this direct, solitary command: stand the night, except a little. So it's an immediate demand for nocturnal isolation and intensive preparation. But, preparation for what exactly?
Well, to answer that, here is our game plan for today. 1. The call to stand. 2. Night training versus daytime chaos. 3. The weight of reality. 4. Pharaoh and systemic collapse. And finally, 5. The flexible collective system. Section 1. The call to stand.
So let's start by looking at this isolated individual who's essentially going into intensive psychological training. Surah 73 Al-Muzzammil immediately confronts this state of seeking comfort, of being hidden away, and demands an emergence. The Arabic root used here for this command to stand is qwm, or qiyam. And in the textual architecture of this surah, standing isn't just about a rigid physical posture or some fixed measure ritual. It denotes conscious, operational standing. It's a fundamental shift from stillness and concealment to active, operational readiness. It's really about establishing an upright state to take on a massive systemic task.
Right, so what do you actually do once you're standing up in the middle of the night? The text commands the individual to engage in tartil of the Quran. Now, stemming from the root RTL, tartil is often understood simply as melodic vocal recitation, but actually a structural analysis reveals it means an organized, measured presentation and structural arrangement. This nighttime standing requires you to structurally arrange the discourse in your mind, step by step, to fortify your own psychology against systemic destruction.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact sequence of this cognitive calibration. Think of it like a graduated intensity training program for the human mind. Step 1, you start from a state of being wrapped up and shielded from the world. Step 2, you step into operational standing, a state of profound readiness. And finally, Step 3, you process and structurally arrange the heavy concepts of reality in the quiet of the night. It's a highly systematic cultivation of awareness.
Part 2. Night training versus daytime chaos.
Which brings us to our second phase. Why must this intensive training happen in the dark? Well, look at how perfectly these two environments contrast. The surah uses the term nashiat al-layl for the night, meaning a state of genesis or emergence that specifically happens when your external sensory inputs are minimized. It allows for tabattul, which is complete, single-pointed devotion and orientation. Now, in total opposition to this, the day is described as safesan ta'wila, an extended flow or literally swimming through the dispersing currents of daily affairs.
Let's focus on that daytime reality for a second. This long occupation or swimming mentioned in the text, it isn't just about taking a leisurely dip in the pool or getting some rest, as it's sometimes traditionally framed. It actually represents the necessary, exhausting societal friction of human life. Think about it, the relentless emails, the draining commutes, the endless to-do lists. It's the wide, chaotic current of social and economic interactions that constantly drains our cognitive focus. It is precisely because the daytime is so chaotic and demanding that this nocturnal cognitive anchoring becomes an absolute structural necessity. Section 3. The weight of reality. Okay, so we know the day is exhausting. But what exactly is the individual preparing to carry? The text tells us they're preparing for qalan taqila. Unpacking the root thaql reveals it means something super weighty or highly dense. Across the corpus, this root consistently denotes existential and systematic accountability. We're talking about the weight of reality itself. The individual is standing in the night, arranging the discourse, entirely to build the internal capacity to bear a profoundly dense structural truth.
So the crucial point here is captured perfectly in the text. Indeed, we will cast upon you a heavy word. Doing transformational work in the real world cannot be sustained by superficial enthusiasm. It demands a rigorous, structured cultivation of consciousness. Without that nighttime foundation, the heavy word, the immense responsibility of systemic change and enduring the inevitable pushback of society would absolutely crush the individual.
Moving on to Section 4, Pharaoh and Systemic Collapse. Now let's shift our focus outward to the external world to confront the pushback from those who deny reality and look at macro-historical consequences. Surah 73 Al-Muzzammil invokes a very specific historical paradigm here, the corporate failure of Pharaoh. But listen, this is not just a random anecdote or a simple bedtime story of good versus evil. It is a precise legal and structural case study of systemic collapse. The timeline breaks this down into 3 distinct phases. Phase 1, a balancing signal or messenger is sent. Phase 2, the system engages in tagdib, an active material and verbal denial of reality. And Phase 3 is the inevitable consequence.
And that consequence is called wabal. The root WBL signifies a heavy, catastrophic downpour or devastating outcome. Notice the connection to weight again there. Top-heavy, tyrannical systems that rely on material excess while simultaneously rejecting the balancing signals of reality inevitably face a wabal. They quite literally collapse under their own unaligned, massive weight.
Then, the surah scales this way up, from the historical to the cosmic. On the day the earth and the mountains tremble. This describes the ultimate terrifying scale of accountability. Any socio-political system attempting to oppose fundamental structural alignment will face an absolute and total collapse. And not just metaphorically, but on an eschatological scale. The reality you fail to prepare for in the quiet of the night is absolutely going to confront you in the daylight as an undeniable crushing force.
Finally, Section 5, the flexible collective system. We've seen the intense individual training, the necessity of the night, the weight of the message, and the terrifying collapse of systems that fail to align. But let's remember how Surah 73 Al-Muzzammil began. It started with just one solitary, enveloped individual commanded into strict, unyielding nighttime isolation. It was an intense, singular obligation.
Now let's move to the closing verse and see how this builds. This final section brilliantly recalibrates that strict isolation into a compassionate, diverse, collective framework. The text explicitly modifies the intense night-standing requirement to accommodate the lived reality of human beings. It recognizes the sick who need healing, the economic travelers who are journeying through the land seeking bounty and subsistence, and the defenders combating for justice. The core essence remains exactly the same, but the operational system flexes to accommodate the diverse realities of a whole society.
Because of this expanded societal reality, the demanding ideals of the opening verses seamlessly transform into these scalable community actions. Maintain the connection, or salah. Give what fosters growth, which is zakat. And extend to Allah a good loan. These are not merely arbitrary rituals. They are the externalized, collective continuation of that deep inward orientation we saw being cultivated in the night. Let's look a bit closer at that last one, the good loan, or Qardon Hasanan, from the root QRD. The text isn't just speaking in vague metaphors here. This implies giving, reckoned within a deferred compensatory system, which actually is just a slightly academic way of saying that the text is creating a highly functional socioeconomic system for real human beings. It takes the heavy responsibility internalized in the night and channels it into a compassionate, functional, economic, and social reality that supports the community during the chaotic day.
So, to summarize the core operational blueprint of Surah 73 Al-Muzzammil, internal orientation must precede, sustain, and survive external systemic conflict. You can't fix the chaos of the world, the Seban Tawila of the day, without first anchoring your consciousness in the heavy, measured truths of the night. Internal alignment is the absolute, non-negotiable prerequisite for surviving external chaos.
Which leaves us with this final, really crucial thought for you to take away today. Seeing this ancient operational manual laid out so clearly against the realities of burnout, systemic collapse, and our own daily friction, we have to ask ourselves, how are you building your own internal foundation in the night to withstand the external chaos of the day? Are you taking the time to stand, process, and structurally arrange the weight of reality, or are you just letting the currents sweep you away? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep standing, and I'll see you next time.